We're here, and thank you for being here. This is the last day of our 3-day symposium, Reclamation, Gathering, Remembering, Telling Our Story. And we have heard some stories, and much of it new to me. I so appreciate learning about the divers. Oh my goodness, and let's give him a round of applause. My goodness, and if I were a little younger, I'd be in that class. But I'm at a stage, but I think you have motivated and inspired a number of people to seek you out. Thank you to Mr. Corey Johnson, who presented just this wonderful, wonderful look, startling look at the poisoning of the air, the water, the ground in Tampa, Florida. We've heard about what happened in Flint, but most of us don't know about what happened in Tampa and the fact that that's probably replicated in many other places. But it took an investigative journalist like Corey Johnson to dig deep and ask questions and to reveal just really startling information about how not only our environment was being poisoned, but how human beings, that legacy of poisoning of the environment has led to just so many difficulties experienced by human beings who then get, for various reasons, because of how their health is affected, their learning is affected, it has an impact on their experiences throughout their lives, and all of that contributes to this web, this interconnection and this intersectionality of social injustices. And so a theme of our initiative and part of the theme of reclamation is around the criminal justice system. Again, how that intersects with all aspects of the social injustices that we experience, the African American community in particular experiences in this country. Our 3-year movement, Mellon, our 3-year Mellon supported movement, memory, and justice project was supposed to come to an end at the end of this calendar year. We have been notified by Mellon that our grant period has been extended 6 months and will not end until June of 2025, which will give us more time to bring together people to tell these important stories and to raise awareness of our students and to help prepare them to go out into the world to make a difference, to help transform the system, the criminal justice system and other systems that impact social justice for us in this country and in the world. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Clarissa Myrik-Harris. I'm professor of Africana Studies at Morehouse College, principal investigator for the Movement, Memory, and Justice Project. My colleagues, Corey Claiborne, co-principal investigator for this project, and the project director, Dr. Monique Lewis, who has served as a co-project director. She's our faculty development person. She has worked with Corey, and where's Tendaji? Right in front of me, who has served officially as our internship coordinator, but has done about 50,000 other things as well, including, as I mentioned yesterday, the designing of the beautiful, beautiful program we have for this initiative. Now, we are getting a late start once again, 20 minutes, but we are going to move through the program, and there is going to be approximately 45 minutes allotted for this session, because what they have to say, what each of our panelists has to say, is extremely important. And so I'm going to introduce our moderator for this panel, Mr. Tristan St, who is a junior psychology major and minor in leadership studies, and a fellow in the Andrew Young Center for Global Leadership's Prison and Higher Education program. So please, welcome, Tristan.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Reclamation panel from Mass Incarceration to Transformation and Liberation. Let me introduce you to our panelists who will talk about their important initiatives. First, Dr. Clarissa Myrik-Harris, professor of Africana Studies and principal investigator of Morehouse's Mellon Foundation supported Movement, Memory, and Justice Project will provide a brief overview of the MJ project.
And I've actually just done that.
Yes. Mr. Roland Washington, founder and chief operating officer of the nonprofit National Incarceration Association, will talk about the impetus, import, and purpose of the NIA. Scholar activist Dr. Kathryn Rice will talk to us about the National Incarceration Association Brilliance Behind Bars and the Research Service Project. She and Mr. Washington are leading this together, which is being conducted in partnership with Morehouse. Dr. Kipton Jensen, a Morehouse philosophy professor and director of the Leadership Studies program, will talk to us about the Morehouse Andrew Young Center in Global Leadership, Higher Education, and Prisons Initiative. California-based independent filmmaker Adamu Chan will discuss and how we create his award-winning documentary about the power of individuals and find their voice and free spirit while they are in prison. Mr. Washington, would you be able to tell us about the origin and focus of the NIA, please?
Absolutely, sure. Thank you so very much, my young brother scholar. Roland Washington, the National Incarceration Association. It's a nonprofit that my business partner and I started about the year 2016. We were first a little reluctant about the name, National Incarceration Association. Just a short window of time back then, wasn't that long ago, people were desperately afraid of us using the word incarceration in the name of our company, albeit a charitable organization, right? We did it on purpose because we wanted to put forward aggressively and assertively the word incarceration so that we'd be forced to reckon with what it feels up or down, positively or negatively, to every soul that approached us with a conversation or a judgment about it. We're in the business of reforming systems that incarcerate humans. We're not the lone entity by no stretch, but we embrace those challenges. It's a set of challenges because systems fail at the primary thing. We as taxpayers and voters, your vote is constituent, is a currency. They fail at the primary thing we pay them to do, and that's to transform souls who end up living in carceral communities. What's a carceral community? It's another fancy thing of me saying which is a what? Or a jail. Why do I call it a carceral community? Yeah. For the community who looks like us, rehabilitating and doing programs to help people reform their lives while they're living in carceral communities is not a question or a matter of benevolence. It's not a question of being equitable with the distribution of entitlements. For us, it's an imperative to continue developing our community, to continue seeing and turning the microscope ourselves on the flaws and deficiencies of our communities. Let me quickly ask you, if you yourself have ever felt handcuffs, even for a night in a jail, or have a close family member who has or has served any time, any length of time in a prison, or someone close to you has either of those things, please raise your hand. Yeah, so when in a community or in an audience like this, and you see more than 40% of it raises its hands, the subject matter belongs to us. When I say us, I don't mean just us of the diaspora, I mean us in this room, in this moment. Our business is to take the carceral community and help this community understand that it is our community. To us, it can't be a 48-hour special on A&E. It can't be a behind the jail, first arrest, whatever those things are, who are making money off of the fallacies and the oppression of our community. For us, it's got to be a resolve and a mission. When I say us, I don't mean just people of the diaspora. I mean the people in this room. I look forward to working with this illustrious staff of you, as well as my continued experience with this college, and this AUC center, where I myself was once a student many moons ago. Thank you.
I'm Dr. Kathryn Rice, and I am the other half of this team. Roland Washington is the practitioner. I am the academic side. So together we work as a partnership. We had a pilot project last year, and I want to show you the video that came out of that. Before I do that, let me just thank the partnership that we've had excuse me, with the Movement Memory Justice team. That is Drs. Clarissa Myrik-Harris, Drs. Corey Claiborne, Monique Earl Lewis, who is not here, Dr. Tanaji, sister just walked in.
Oh, you're a doctor now.
And most of all, I want to thank you all for coming out today to listen to what we have to say. So.
I came to Hillman because you are the future. Not everybody gets your chance. Almost 1 in every 4 black men are either in prison or on parole, and their future depends on how we treat them when they get out.
You used us. This is exploitation.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Mr. $2.50 an hour?
Well, that wasn't because you were a convict, that's because you were stupid. Brother, I admire what you're doing, but not the way you're doing it. Next time, go to Morehouse with that.
My name is Kathryn Rice. Myself and Roland Washington are the two that are really kind of generating this portion of the project. This is part of the Morehouse grant with Mellon Foundation, and the name of their portion is called Movement, Memory, and Justice. Roland came up with this concept called brilliance behind bars. And what that means is that we often don't think this way, but there is value and brilliance in the people who are behind bars, particularly those who are engaging in post-secondary education.
We had an old project idea about letting the general public know about the brilliance that people have despite their incarceration reality, right? And that what does that look like in the person's personal circle? And for us, it's mining for those nuggets of brilliance and then explaining to the rest of the world why they transform when given an opportunity.
It's valuable for students to sit down with someone who they may or may not have contact with in their everyday lives. They are probably more closely aligned in understanding of experiences than we give them credit for. Because one of the first questions Mr. Washington asks when he starts all of this is, how many of you all know someone who has been incarcerated, or have you been yourself? And the entire classroom raises their hands.
I'm sure to thank each and every one of you for your interest in education for the incarcerated.
I understand this is the beginning, and it's just like when you start anything, you start with certain preconceived notions and different things like that, but it's going to grow as you experience more people and interview more people and get deeper into the research that you're doing.
So I'm gonna stop there. That was just a snippet. The video is about 20 minutes long. You're welcome to see it at another time. Thank you. And so I want to talk to you about the project that we're doing here at Morehouse as part of MMJ. In our project, we focus only on men. And you may ask, why only men? And that's because 93%, and these are 2023 statistics, 90% of the people who are in state and federal prisons are men. And then of those 93%, the largest contingent, despite being only 13.4% of the population, is Black men, larger than the number of whites, Latinos, Hispanics, or whatever. And within those 32%, almost 60% of the Black men that are in there are between the ages of 20 and 39. And you may question, well, what importance is that? If you look at the students that are here, they're just beginning their lives. At 20 years old, they're thinking about their career, who they may partner with, they're building a house, building a family, etc. So what we're talking about then is that 60% of these men who are behind jail are not doing that. Right. So where it says we're here, those are people who are behind bars. And if you look at that first one where it's just a candle, you can look at that as either the Dark Ages, you can look at that as slavery. But these symbols represent human development. And so when you look at that second image, we've already gone past that. Most of us are using this third image, which is the LED in our homes right now. But behind bars, they're not developing the same way that society is. And so they're back there while we're continuing on. And this last one represents the future. AI, chatbot, etc. And so although they may have some exposure, not the same way that we do have out here. So luckily, we ran into the MMJ team in Morehouse. And what that represents is that now we had two groups of people. Remember, I'm an academic. And one group of people here are Black men that are going to one of the most elite colleges in the United States. And then on the other hand, you've got Black men, students also, who are behind bars. And so what we're looking at is the transformation, because most of those gentlemen who are behind bars now have taken post-secondary education and they're on the same path. So it's a unique opportunity to look at what's happening with these two groups. What made this group take this path? What made this group take this path? This is our research question. What is it about post-secondary education that causes a transformation in particularly those who are formerly incarcerated, because that's who we deal with, that took college courses behind bars? So before, I know this is a lot of writing, did that purposely because we just wanted you to see that what we did then was that we coded the interviews that occurred. So we have what we call a gathering where we all come together, and the students of the AUC Center interview alumni, and in turn, an alumni should define are formerly incarcerated who have taken college courses behind bars, and in turn, the alumni interviewed the students. There were a few insights that we got out of that. This is the way the coding comes out. It's in the exact language that was used by the people who were interviewed. And so you can't read the small writing, but I highlighted a few of the things that they said. When asked, we asked the alumni, what are your thoughts about education now? How have you changed, or how do you view post-secondary education now? One says, very important, it's a game changer, it stretches you, it causes you to think outside of whatever environment, whatever way of thinking you may not have even considered prior to having to do research. Another says, but my thought process on education now is, as I did my studies, I know that education is the quickest way out of poverty. Like I said, it's invaluable. You can't put a value on education. And this brother says, I wish some of these brothers that I know that's out there doing what they're doing is getting this education so that they understand. So these same folks, when they were in K through 12, many didn't even graduate. But now all of a sudden, it's a total game changer. The education has caused a transformation. We have limited time, so I just want to finish up on one more thing, and that's how the Morehouse students reacted to their interaction with alumni. And I highlighted some of them here. It was what, the top is cut off, but it says it was one of the most important times at Morehouse College because it reminded me of the importance of perspective. Another student said, what was intended to be a simple interview turned into one of my most enriching experiences in my time at Morehouse. Third student, the men I interviewed for this project are some of the most articulate, intellectual, accountable, and self-aware people I've ever met. It just inspired me that I need to do more as a young Black man who has all these opportunities in front of me. And last, if this interview, the interview was just very, I don't know, breathtaking. So, I'm gonna end here. I guess what I want to say more than anything is that we have a unique opportunity in front of us. And this, we didn't expect any of this, but this is the way that it turned out, and it was wonderful. We're doing phase 2 now at Morehouse, so we look forward to working with the students more and coming out with more. And I appreciate your time and listening to us. Thank you.
As we transition to Dr. Kipton Jensen, I'll just note that we are looking for students. We have identified our 7 sections of the African American Experience class, and students in the class are taking are doing the project of service learning. They have to sign a consent form, take training, to do interviews. It's going through the IRB process again, but the project is underway, and we anticipate smooth sailing and a successful phase 2 with upwards of 100 students involved in interviewing about approximately 20 alumni of higher education in prison. Thank you.
There's one other thing I wanted to say. I know Adamu is coming on after me. I had the opportunity to see his film. It's great. Go see it if you can. Wonderful job.
Welcome friends, I'm Jensen, and I've been here 14 years at Morehouse, and one of the most transformative things I've done since coming to Morehouse, really in my professional career, has been teaching in prisons. At the U.S. Federal Penitentiary, most recently, together with Dr. Justin McClinton, he'll be here a few minutes, together with some of our students who are part of a cohort of higher education and prison student ambassadors. They go inside with us, but they also advocate. Criminal justice reform, yes. Abolition, yes. Expanding higher education in prisons primarily. And that's what we've tried to do, is to stick to what we do best, which is teach. For me, it's humanities, and to love the students in front of us. So even if I'm an abolitionist, I keep that up my sleeve and not on my sleeve, and I just like do the work. And I don't think that any of the faculty over 20 who have been doing this work feel like we're an extension of the Bureau of Prisons or the Department of Corrections, nor do we view it as missionary work. What we try to do is to bring our expertise and the joy of the humanities into spaces which, even at their best, often seem very inhumane. So I wanted to allow Mr. St. John to say a word about his experience going inside the U.S. Federal Penitentiary with us, and then we'll queue up a very short video.
Thank you, Dr. Jensen. this experience of going into
You don't go to the mic or use the mic.
yeah, I can use it.
Thank you.
Hello? Everyone can hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So, this experience of being able to go into the federal penitentiary and talk to these individuals, learn their stories, learn who they are outside of that mistake that they made in their life that ended them up in this situation has been life-changing, I would say. When the question was asked, do we know of or ever been in a situation where we've been handcuffed or know anyone who's been handcuffed and put through that system, I was one of those people who raised my hand because I've grown up and seen a lot of my close friends, family be put into that same system, and I think being a part of this program has allowed me to understand that prisons aren't a form of preventing crime or trying to put bad people away, but it's rather a system that the government is trying to maintain in order to accomplish other goals, which, you know, that's a whole different conversation. But I think that this program is something that's needed. It's needed not only at Morehouse, but I think every HBCU should have a form of this program, just for the simple fact that HBCUs were founded in the spirit of trying to help our enslaved ancestors, right? And I feel like today that underclass has become people who are incarcerated. Now they don't have the opportunity to integrate back into normal society. So I think it's the duty of HBCUs to be able to go in and help these people, especially since the vast majority of them, as you can see from the numbers, look just like us. I don't know why it's even not being pushed, not being considered, but I'm blessed to be here today because I'm in this room with so many great minds and I'm able to take in and learn so much more. But I think this definitely needs to be something that's more widely spoken about. Being able to be part of higher education and prisons program at Morehouse has probably been one of, if not the most impactful thing I've done. And I think it's something that I'm just, you know, at the tip of the iceberg. I want to be able to entrench myself in this work. I think it's something that we should all, at some capacity, be involved in, because these are our men, these are our fathers, our brothers, our sons, and they need to be able to come back into society and not continue to be put in a perpetual cycle of repeating the same thing over and over again, because that's what we know, because we know that's what the system wants, right? And if we don't do something about it, I don't know who will. So I'm looking forward to continue doing this work, continuing to listen to our panelists, and thank you, Dr. Jensen, for giving me the opportunity to speak.
So if we can, we'll play just a very short video, but you know, this is golden, right? That's why I'm hopeful. Even though CABA says, and we do this until we free us, that in America, our tendency is to look away from that which overwhelms us. And the prison industrial complex overwhelms us. So teaching in prisons means that we grow eyes to see and, you know, not look away from that which is really overwhelming. So in our classes, you know, we quote Kwame Nkrumah, who says that theory without practice is empty, and practice without theory is blind. So I love it when our students are studying theory, you know, reading Ruth Gilmore, reading Angela Davis, reading Michelle Alexander from 10 years ago, and so that's what's really inspiring to me. And I'm glad that Dr. McClinton stepped in here, because I have to step away, but Dr. McClinton and I have been working shoulder to shoulder on higher education in prisons for the past year and a half. And he's Morehouse man, 13. Then he went and got a PhD in leadership and came back. He's teaching leadership studies classes. We have, you know, common students like Tristan, Mr. St. John here. But the primary work has been in prison. So we've been co-teaching And our primary site is the U.S. Federal Penitentiary, which is about 5 miles from here. But I have to step away, but if we can play the video, and then Dr. McClinton, you're in very good hands. He's going to answer questions. Okay, thank you.
The Andrew Young Center for Global Leadership has been at Morehouse College for over 25 years. During that time, it has consistently focused on the leadership development of our students. Our higher education in prisons program is considered a centerpiece of the Andrew Young Center. I say that because it is the perfect opportunity for Morehouse College to extend its unique mission and its unique curriculum into our community.
The United States locks up more people per capita than any other nation in the world. Georgia Department of Corrections says that 2 out of 3 incarcerated individuals in Georgia will return to prison within 5 years. But if you add higher education, those students who receive sustained courses, say the equivalent of an associate's degree, the number drops to 13% nationally. And for those who receive a bachelor's degree in prison, the number drops to 5%.
Teaching at Metro Reentry, in the fall, was one of the most extraordinary experiences I have had as a professor in my life. The thing that was so remarkable to me at the end of the day is how much it affected me. So you go on thinking like you're going to make impact, you want to make impact, you're nervous that you won't, and then you come out and you realize you're the one who probably got the greatest gift.
In this role as a prison education ambassador, I go into the systems, with the faculty, and just talk to the incarcerated individuals about education, how they can further themselves, and that there is still much that they can do while they're in the system. So when I found out about this initiative that Morehouse had, I instantly knew that this is what I wanted to do, that it was for me.
There is something hugely gratifying having the opportunity to teach at Morehouse. Teaching at the prison, though, is also very special, given that these are typically individuals that feel that they have been maligned by the educational system. For them, having the opportunity to take college-level courses from instructors from Morehouse is a dream come true. So they take it very seriously because this is something that they thought that they would not have.
If you have knowledge of yourself, knowledge of your history, knowledge of your culture, it empowers you.
Everyone has potential, and education enables you to explore your potential, challenges your thoughts. You can explore your inventory of ideas and grow upon them. You're not also learning by yourself, you're learning with others. And it's through others that help you see your own potential.
Education is definitely a deterrent to crime. I want to say that outright. Because again, I can't express this enough, that you can want to do better, but if you don't have the knowledge, you don't know how. I wanted to distance myself from my past. I wanted to create opportunities for myself. And if I didn't learn anything, how was I going to do it?
It's an audacious experiment. It attempts to take a space that is really used to punish people and turn it into an emancipatory space where people can feel free to hope and dream, to discover themselves and prepare themselves for returning into their respective communities.
I've always asked myself the question over 7-8 years that I was a part of the BPI program, where are the HBCUs? And I think back to the history of HBCUs and how they came into being. From what I've read, the HBCUs were meant to help formerly enslaved people gain a foothold in society. The closest parallel to formerly enslaved people today, I think, are incarcerated people. And if HBCUs aren't leading the movement of college and prison programming, then they're not holding up to that mission. Like, we have to continue that fight.
Now, I would like to welcome Mr. Chan to the podium to speak to us about his film and his work. Thank you.
Good morning.
everybody. How's everybody doing? Right. I'm usually in the position of speaking about the film after the film's been shown, so I'm gonna be very brief, and then I hope that maybe if anyone has any questions or comments afterwards, we can find time to talk. I want to thank Morehouse College for inviting me here today. I really appreciate it. I came here to this campus to visit a good friend of mine who attended this school back in 1995. It was the first time I had been here. And it's a very different, Atlanta's a very different city from that time, and it's shocking to me. And also kind of scary too, because I feel like a lot of the changes that are happening in Atlanta remind me of changes back home in the Bay Area. And when I think about the theme of this conference about reclamation, memory, I think about my memories and about the people that may have existed in this community before, and how when we talk about incarceration, the erasing of communities, this is one of the ways that this happens, right? That people get disappeared from places. So just sitting with that, during my visit here to Atlanta. My name is Adamu, and I'm a filmmaker based in the Bay Area, California. I was incarcerated at San Quentin State Prison in California. And during that time was part of a film crew, an all incarcerated film crew inside that was producing videos and films about the lives of incarcerated people. And during that time we were producing a show that went out to all 36 prisons in California. I think during that time, that work transformed me. Not just that we had this opportunity that was a unique opportunity in the whole landscape of prisons, maybe anywhere in the world, which is that we had these media tools, that we had cameras inside of a prison, that we were incarcerated and were able to, produce work. But also that we were able to communicate across the system to other people, to lift up the voices of people within our community that maybe felt like they didn't have a voice. And also, I guess against kind of the history of media, and particularly mainstream media's representations of people who have been incarcerated and the communities that they come from, and the role that we had in telling our own stories and undoing that. And so, to me, when I talk about transformation, I talk about the fact that many of the people that we were communicating with, many of the people that we were representing, had never seen themselves represented in ways that were affirming to their humanity, that were done with care. And I think that set me on a path to really embracing this work and feeling like this was my purpose. This was what I was put here to do in this place, in this moment. And so in 2020, of course, the world was impacted by the COVID pandemic, and that is no different to folks inside. And during that time, me and other folks that I was in community with inside of St. Quentin started doing media work from inside. When we were locked in our cells, we didn't have access to cameras, but we held a press conference from inside of San Quentin from payphones that was attended by the New York Times, Washington Post, and other media outlets, and we were reporting from inside about what was going on. And also, I would say, in the same vein and in the same kind of spirit, we were also communicating across, the state and across the nation to other people who in other prisons through these media channels, telling them about what was going on, and also inspiring them to lift their voices too. And so I won't say much more. This film is about that time. It's about a story of this community, but it's also a story about love, and it's also a story about, with the intention for me to communicate across the diaspora of incarcerated people in their communities, and in the spirit of what I feel like the Black tradition of art is about communicating across the diaspora. And sometimes that means using mainstream platforms. Maybe it's, it's the music industry or it's the film industry. But I think so much of the media that's created about prisons is created with the intention of transforming white people's, I shouldn't say white people, white people's ideas about this system and the people that are incarcerated there. And sometimes I feel like that is a hopeless practice. And I feel like history will tell us that it's a hopeless practice. And I feel like what I want to do is communicate with people who already know. And that to me, that seems more hopeful. So enjoy the film. I just leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all our panelists. I would now like to open up the floor for any questions. In the back.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm getting ready to walk out in a minute or two. Brother Chan, I appreciate all that you just shared. And this is for any and all of you. I have, for those who don't know, I'm Queen Quet, I'm Chiefess and head from the body of the Gullah Geechee Nation. So I have spoken in numerous prisons. And the first one I was ever invited to speak in is Liba Correctional Institution in South Carolina, which is a maximum security male prison that houses all the death row inmates for South Carolina. I didn't know that until after I'd spoken there. So I have baker's boxes full of letters from prisoners over the years that I write back to them, send them books, send them literature. What they said to me is, Queen Quet, if you can help us, number one, actually, what is the word they're supposed to be, institutions of rehabilitation. They said they don't rehabilitate us. So if you can help us be rehabilitated, because most of us would never be in here if we knew our culture. So to make the long story short, so many prisoners signed up to see me, and everything that I said or did that night, they listened. I became a threat to the South Carolina Department of Corrections, and they didn't want me to come into any more prisons, okay? So I still come in by letters and books, but they don't want me to come in. Have you all received any pushback? Because I'm actually teaching them what the prisoners asked. They said, if someone had told us our culture, would be in here and give the brothers and sisters a message. We want to see them when we get out. We don't want to see them in here. So have y'all gotten pushback from correctional systems with the work you do?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I mean, we have to work pretty intimately with the government systems here, be they state or federal. And so we're going to teach our class on Wednesday at the Federal Penitentiary, just down the road, about 15 minutes or so east of here. And I pay attention to small things like this. I'm an organizational theorist by trade. That's what my PhD is in. Usually when we come, right, there's two benches for us to sit on, right? General visitors or whatever, that's everybody. They got rid of one of the benches. And the warden recently changed, and so you deal with this all the time, these little kind of like institutional ways that they disempower people with what you're talking about. And we have a really strong student on the inside right now, brother by the name of Andrew Carter Sr., who's about 50-something odd years old, who literally in his essays articulates this, like, wow, all this information that I'm being taught, whether it be about Frederick Douglass or Socrates, I can now take back to my own Black family and kind of pour into them in ways that weren't poured into me, which is why I'm in this situation in the first place. So thank you
work that you're doing. And yeah, no, they're gonna make it hard for us, but we gotta keep up the fight. Yep.
Yeah. You are not alone by any stretch. The system of oppression is political. For a minute, we were taught to believe that the system of oppression in this country is all about separation of peoples. It's an insinuation of what brought us here, enslavement, et cetera, but America leads in the cultural industry throughout the entire world because they learned how to do incarceration from the success of slavery. It has to be politicized from their perspective. It is mostly politicized when you behave as if you might transform humans who are the subject of their oppression, yea, their industry. It's nuanced to perfection, just like Willie Lynch's intentions. They got it down pat, Jack. You may not be able to feel it. Heck, they got you thinking that you may be alone in feeling that you politically can be ostracized. Those who can be in programs that are in, man, we walk on eggshells with the fact of knowing they're in 2 state prisons. And you know, part of the reason that they're in a federal prison is to kind of give some balance to the fear of state officials that we can be elsewhere as well. Right. So it's always very tenuous. You don't know politically. You can get in because you have a relationship with some warden for a minute, or you got a relationship with some chaplain who let you come in and do some kind of a program, and then their bosses were talking about, we got programs. That can change overnight if somebody's in executive office calls and say, who's in there? Yeah, well, they were marching with those other people. My CEO was once told by, I won't say names, once told by somebody, a high-ranking official that's supposed to be a public safety official that we pay with our votes or our tax currency. Oh, but you work with that organization over there, the Southern Center. They sue people, right? So it's very tenuous, but it's tenuous by intent.
Thank you. And thank y'all for your work. Keep it up.
Thank you for your work.
And I appreciate all of you for inviting me and the family to be part of the Reclamation. We look forward to 100 children coming to we in the Gullah Geechee Nation. Yeah. Peace and blessings, y'all.
Thank you.
What a privilege to be with you today. My name's Ellen Sanders, and I'm a middle school teacher. So my question, I have 2 questions. When I performed at San Quentin and Folsom Prison with an orchestra, we were accompanying the words of an inmate. So I hope that you have those kinds of programs that you're trying to expand where they get their words. The prisoner didn't speak for 6 years, and when he started speaking, then he couldn't stop. But so it was a privilege that I got to accompany his thoughts. But my first question is, do you have differentiated learning for the students? Because the students that I see have dyslexia, they learn visually, it's hard for them to read. And so I think when you get to this point when you're an adult and you're incarcerated, how are you getting that across to them? So, I mean, I have to teach all different modes of learning. So I'm hoping that that's something that you're addressing.
And I have a background in K-12 education as well. I was a high school teacher for a brief bit. And I appreciate that. So in our current class on the inside, we have a student who's an English language learner, primarily Spanish. And we got to work with that. And can we right now go to the folks in the education, like they have a department that they call education on the inside, and this is at the federal penitentiary, but you know, oh, we need supplemental, you know, materials and things of that nature, because I have to simultaneously help this person learn English and teach them these complex concepts, you know, from, you know, Check Ante Joke to John Henry Clark and the like. So we work on it in-house, you know, and I think my praxis background is sort of useful in that vein, having worked with ELL students before, or students with like IEPs and various other kind of like issues. But yeah, it's really on us right now as far as soldiering through that. There's, and I can't speak for every, you know, prison or facility in their education apparatus, but yeah, right now, no, we don't have any like help with that kind of stuff.
And then okay, yes.
And if I might add, you're in a southern state. Things are a little different. So this is new. They are explorers. Of his peers who actually go in and conduct these classes, the nonprofit organizations that negotiate the program space to even start the class. This is like very new. Dr. Rice and I, we don't have a cohort yet to study the impact of what we're doing, so we're studying others who have come from other systems. And it's a limited number of alumni that have come out of those programs, very limited number, so it's all still kind of new for us. What you're talking is certainly on his intellectual dashboard. They understand, and I'll talk about carceral community. The findings from this research study over time, we hope to take those findings, with that have a pretty complicated, complex formula for continued development of our communities and how we learn in our communities, and then challenge a reformation of how we teach in public schools. So that, but I'll just stop right there.
Because my follow-up is, when it took us 2.5 hours to check into San Quentin because of all the security, I got chatting with one of the guards and I said, oh, what are these people coming in? You know, they were all dressed up going into a conference room. And he said, oh, well, they're gonna talk about 3rd grade literacy in the state of California. So they knew how many cells to get prepared. And that changed my life, because then I decided I was gonna become a public school teacher. So do you also have a partnership with your Morehouse students getting into those elementary schools and making sure that we're getting that foundation established as well?
Thank you for that question, and that's a bone-chilling scene to see people going and talking, preparing for the next generation of incarcerated citizens. But we have a Center for Excellence in Teaching and Center for Excellence in Education and a teacher education program that's led by Dr. Nina Gilbert. And yes, she, and then I think also perhaps the Andrew Young Center are working in public schools. And certainly Dr. Gilbert is very intentional about identifying public schools and independent schools in which the majority of the students are African American young girls and boys. But yes, that is so important to get in there early. And to speak just very quickly before one more question is asked, we'll be working, the MMJ program, we'll be working with the Andrew Young Center's Higher Education in Prison initiative to really develop an HBCU initiative. We're going to invite, now that we've got an extension on our program, we're going to invite HBCUs to come and to work together, because there are very few of these programs, higher education and prison programs, in our historically Black colleges and universities. So that is definitely an initiative that we will undertake. And yes, those pipelines and bridges to public schools, starting in kindergarten, really, are going to have to be a part of that as well.
One more question?
I actually have one, if you don't have one.
Yeah, how y'all doing? Thank y'all very much for your presentation. Just real quick, and I think this, again, is a new program, so we're not expecting everything to be as it is, as it will be over time. But just question again, is a question for the room. As you know, people who are incarcerated have families and communities on the outside, right? And while we're talking about these education systems in prisons and jails, and the people at home, if I go to prison, I have a family, and that family matters. And oftentimes, we look at the prisoners and we forget the families and communities who have been deprived of these people, right? So how do we marry and meld the inside program also with transformation on the outside, right? Because at the end of the day, as we know, these perpetuate systems where our father will go in and then the son is 10 years behind or 15, 20 years behind. So again, how do we meld that again to the ultimate purpose, which is to, in my opinion, abolish the prison system, right? So that will be the question to y'all.
Dr. Claiborne and I were actually having these conversations in 2022 about how do we provide support for, oh, my apologies. I was saying Dr. Claiborne and I, we're having conversations in 2022, even before all of this came into being. And we also have a colleague, Dr. Ife Tayo Ojelade, who I had the opportunity to work with when she received a grant during the Obama administration to create wraparound services for reentry and reconnection. The challenges we found was just finding an anchor in the communities to put the structures, to make the services available. And so now that we have these greater partnerships, we can have some other solutions, because we know that if you went into a penal system at any time before now with these light bulbs, just think about how we are managing all of these new things. We know that it's not just about the skills, but it's about the psychosocial support that people need as well. So we don't have the structuring, but we are preparing by being in conversations with licensed psychologists and psychologists who are doing community-based practice. And so as we continue this initiative, we have resources that we hope to be able to align with the structures that are now in place. But it was just a challenge trying to get support from the systems that Queen Quet spoke about, where we're saying we have this to offer. And it wasn't even no, it was just silence. So, Dr. Claiborne, I don't know if you want to add any more to that. Where am I going?
Yeah, I don't have much more to add. Of course, just to sum that up. Again, it's kind of new. There are lots of nonprofit organizations that have lots of years of doing the wraparound services and reentry services on different levels and different buckets of charitable services. There hasn't been a lot of conversation about how do you actually, what's the science of the lack of this part of developing the person or rehabilitating the person around post-secondary education or even continuing education to the family structure around that individual. We're laying that out now as part of the formula that I talked about, and other subsequent think tanks and coming together with our HBCUs in the next phase that these brilliant minds have put together and negotiated to have funding and resources for. We're going to get to that. But we do understand a person that his staff is teaching right now in one of these prisons. He said it when he talked about this young man. He avoided the conversation, might have avoided seeing his teenagers on some levels because he couldn't articulate the way that he wanted them to experience articulation. He couldn't have a conversation about how to do a certain level of homework, but he can now. And so the fatherhood principle for him starts to just, you know what I mean? Things start to expand. And then they're talking about, I can't wait to talk to dad about this. And I can tell him about that, just like we do, just like a freshman does here. That we know that formula works. We know it's a part of the broader developmental formula. So now we're getting to a point where that also is on our intellectual calendar.
Good morning. Good morning. Question. Thank goodness for Mellon. Mellon is a private organization we all know focuses on the humanities and the arts. But where in your experience does the Department of Education fall when it comes to prison systems? Are there any structures, any funding, any grants, opportunities that Morehouse can latch on to from the Department of Education when it comes to prison systems?
That's a very, very good question. And we will look into that. Do you have a sense?
And, well, let me say one thing. Well, one of the things that's going to make a difference is that Pell grants now, they haven't been available to people that are incarcerated since Clinton, because he got rid of that, but they're now back. And I feel like having students be Pell eligible is going to change the landscape, because of course a lot of colleges, not Morehouse, but a lot of larger ones are interested because now they can make money because you can get student aid from people who are incarcerated. I know Georgia State is ramping up their program, some other kind of things. So it's going to change the landscape, but with that money comes a lot of other things, right? So it's good to have funding, but my larger concern is that, like, what we're doing has to be in that conversation. Because are you really concerned about the well-being of people coming out of the prison system? Are we going to teach them about themselves? Is there going to be cultural education? Because they're getting that from the professors from Morehouse that are there. They might not get that from UGA or whoever else. So, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Claiborne, because that's exactly what I was going to say. We have students on the inside that remember the 90s and will say, hey, I remember when college was in prison, and then now college being out of prison. But like you were saying, the Second Chance Pell Grant, what they call it, was reinstated last year. And so there's a strong constituency at the Department of Education. We do several kind of meetings with the Federal Regional Office of, what do you call it, the Department of Prison, Bureau of Prisons is what it's called. So they have a whole kind of education arm, their regional offices right over by the airport. So there's a dedicated constituency of individuals, several hundred. We meet almost bi-weekly to discuss the very issue that you're talking about, right? We're bringing back college. I think that's an important context to have. The history, you know, in the 1970s, the intellectuals that studied the carceral state thought America might get rid of it because we only had a few 100,000 folks in prison back then. So it's only now with the recent kind of prison industrial complex and what we heard earlier as far as the school to prison pipeline that we're kind of like doing something that we were already doing. So they're really just bringing it back, but we still got to do all the work over again, right? So.
I'm a 90s graduate of Talladega College in Alabama, and I totally remember looking at our enrollment saying, where is this other couple of hundred students coming from? Didn't realize that those were students in the prison that was only a couple of miles from the campus. So I completely remember having that as a part of our enrollment. Didn't realize that it dropped off, but I was just hoping that there were, you know, initiatives that dealt with the infrastructure, the structure that holds those students up, not just give them the aid and the choice to go wherever, but all those things that, as you said, you're doing now to say, hey, we're gonna prop up this particular community of people because they need more than just a check to pay tuition fees.
Absolutely, yes.
Unfortunately, it is time to end the panel. I want to thank all of you for showing out. I want to thank our panelists for their great answering of questions. All of you for your great questions and being attentive